let's just jump right into this explainer. Have you ever wondered why you don't literally boil on a scorching summer day or freeze completely solid during a winter storm? Well, it's because your body is ceaselessly running a highly advanced, totally automated survival program behind the scenes without you even realizing it. Today, we're decoding that exact program. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break things down into four main pillars: the Master Balancing Act itself, regulating body temperature, balancing water and salts, and finally, removing toxic waste. All right, starting with pillar number 1, the Master Balancing Act. We're going to begin with the grand, overarching concept that ties all of this incredible biology together. The fundamental reason you're alive right now comes down to this one simple definition: homeostasis. Coined by Walter Buchanan, it is, simply put, your body's self-regulating system. It maintains your internal stability while the outside world constantly changes around you. Your internal environment is made of fluids, tissues, and organs that absolutely have to be kept within very strict, suitable limits. This creates a literal biological chain of command called a feedback loop. Think of it as your nervous system constantly surveilling your body. Step 1 is your receptors. These are your sensory organs detecting a change, like a sudden drop in temperature, and sending out an urgent neurological message. Step 2 is the control center. Your central nervous system, or CNS, processes that incoming message. And finally, step 3 is the effectors. These are the actual muscles or glands that jump into action based on the CNS's commands to bring your body back to a normal state. Now, it's super interesting how these two loops contrast. Most of our biological surveillance relies on negative feedback. It puts the brakes on a change. So if you get cold, negative feedback suppresses that temperature drop by making you shiver to generate heat, pulling you right back to your normal set point. But sometimes we actually need positive feedback, which intensifies a change. A really clear study example is a physical injury. If you're bleeding, positive feedback tells blood platelets to stick together, continuously intensifying the clotting process until the wound is finally patched. So have you ever been shivering in the freezing cold or sweating right through your shirt on a hot day and wondered what is physically triggering that response? Let's take a much closer look at the temperature challenge. Which brings us to pillar number 2, regulating body temperature. Let's look at another simple definition: thermoregulation. This is the specific homeostatic mechanism that keeps your body's thermal energy expense perfectly stable. Why does this matter so much? Because temperature is the absolute limiting factor for your body's enzymes to function, and enzymes run your entire metabolism. If your temperature drops too low, you get hypothermia, which causes dangerously low metabolic activity or even cardiac arrest. If it spikes too high, you get hyperthermia, which can lead to a stroke or worse. Looking out into the animal kingdom, there are 2 distinct study examples for staying warm. Ectotherms, like reptiles and fishes, derive their heat from external sources. They're essentially solar-powered, relying completely on the sun or their environment, which actually lets them operate at very economical metabolic rates. Endotherms, on the other hand, like humans and birds, are walking internal furnaces. We regulate our body temperature internally through constant metabolic processes, no matter what the weather is doing outside. Let's just use humans as our prime study example. Our internal thermostat is a tiny part of the brain called the hypothalamus, and it is relentlessly guarding a set point of exactly 37 degrees Celsius. When hyperthermia threatens, like during a really intense workout, your hypothalamus triggers vasodilation. It literally widens the blood vessels near your skin to release heat and activates your sweat glands to cool you down through evaporation. But in hypothermia, it triggers vasoconstriction, narrowing those vessels to keep warm blood deep in your core, all while forcing your muscles into involuntary shivering to physically generate heat. But temperature is really only one part of the equation. Water is just as critical, which raises a pretty fascinating survival question about aquatic life. How on earth do fish survive in environments that are constantly trying to pull water out of them or violently pump water into them? Let's dive right into pillar number 3 to find out: balancing water and salts. Here's our next simple definition for you: osmoregulation. Think of this as the ultimate biological fluid management system. It's the process of perfectly balancing the solutes and water inside of you against the environment outside of you. If you don't maintain this exact balance, your cellular functions will simply shut down. Animals essentially handle this massive challenge in 2 distinct ways. Osmoconformers, like starfish and marine crabs, have an internal body solute composition that just equals their external environment. They literally just conform to the salty ocean. But osmoregulators, which includes bony fishes and humans, actively fight to maintain a constant internal environment, regardless of whatever external changes are happening. This is where we see some incredibly clear study examples of extreme survival. Look at how completely opposite these environments are. A freshwater fish has a hypertonic internal environment, meaning water is constantly flooding into its gills via endosmosis. It's basically a sinking boat. The fish is continuously trying to bail water out by excreting large amounts of dilute urine while specialized cells actively absorb salts. But a marine fish? It's swimming in salt, making its external environment hypertonic. It literally faces severe dehydration. So an ocean fish is desperately drinking seawater and then uses specialized glands to pump the heavy excess salts right back out of its body. Land animals, like us, have a totally different set of brilliant evolutionary adaptations to keep from drying out under the hot sun. We rely on waterproof coverings. For example, insects use exoskeletons made of chitin, while mammals rely on keratin in the skin. We've also developed excretion efficiency, expertly reabsorbing water in our kidneys. And perhaps most amazingly, some animals, like the desert kangaroo rat, can survive without drinking any water at all. They get their hydration purely as a byproduct of breaking down fats during cellular metabolism. It is a true biological marvel. Okay, but keeping your water perfectly balanced is really only half the battle. Because as our cells process food and generate energy, they are constantly churning out metabolic trash that could poison us from the inside out. And that brings us to the fourth and final pillar of our explainer, removing toxic waste. Let's hit our final simple definition, excretion. Now, we aren't just talking about exhaling carbon dioxide here. We are primarily focused on nitrogenous wastes. When your body breaks down proteins and nucleic acids, it generates nitrogenous wastes. This is absolutely critical because if these nitrogenous wastes are allowed to build up, they alter our body's pH and osmotic pressure, becoming highly toxic to our cells. This is amazing, and animals' habitat literally dictates its waste strategy. The breakdown of proteins initially produces ammonia, which is a highly toxic gas. Animals that live in water, like pretty much all aquatic fishes, are ammonotelic. They have more than enough surrounding water to safely dilute and flush out this raw ammonia. But land animals don't have that luxury. Mammals and amphibians are ureotelic. Our livers spend precious energy to convert ammonia into a much less toxic liquid called urea, requiring moderate water to flush out as urine. Finally, desert creatures, birds, and insects are uricotelic. They convert the waste into uric acid, excreting it as a thick paste that requires almost zero water, giving them a massive survival advantage in extremely dry, harsh climates. To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with Walter Buchanan's original thought on homeostasis. Every single second of every single day, from managing your enzymes and body temperature to balancing salts and flushing out deadly toxins, your body is quite literally a biological miracle. It is ceaselessly fighting a silent war to keep you stable, healthy, and alive. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. The next time you shiver in the cold or start sweating on a long run, ask yourself, are you really the one controlling your body? Or is your body actually controlling you?